The banners shake, the winds are wild, no freedom comes to wife or child. Wow, those lines just, they hit hard right away. They plunge you straight into this feeling of chaos. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to give you that shortcut to being well-informed, digging into compelling sources for surprising insights. And today, we're diving deep into a poem called Ballad of Counter-Revolution. It's 7 stanzas packed with really stark imagery, asks some big questions. Our mission for you listening is to sort of unpack how this poem uses its metaphors, its historical nods, to tell this story, a story about upheaval, power, and, well, the human cost of it all. We want to shed light on these complex ideas, revolution, what comes after, that whole struggle for justice. I mean, the title alone, Ballad of Counter-Revolution, feels heavy, you know? It sets a certain tone immediately. What kind of journey, what kind of landscape are we really stepping into here?
You're absolutely right. That title is a heavy statement. And the poem, it doesn't waste any time backing it up. Those first lines you quoted, banner shake, winds wild, no freedom. We're immediately thrown into this scene of just profound social disruption. It's not just bad weather. It's a societal tempest, right? Where basic safety, freedom for families, it's gone. It signals this huge collapse, much bigger than just a local fight. Sets a really, really unsettling stage.
And it seems like it's not just human society falling apart. The next lines, the mighty trees fall down in flame and ghostly voices call my name. It adds this almost apocalyptic layer, like nature itself is breaking down too. And what about those ghostly voices? What's their role amidst all this destruction?
Yeah, the poem layers its images so effectively. The burning trees, they definitely amplify that end-of-the-world feeling. But the ghostly voices, that's where the past really starts to intrude, I think. They might not be literal ghosts, but more like the echoes of past wrongs, specters of people who suffered before, maybe even failed promises from other revolutions calling out through the chaos. It suggests this conflict has deep roots, and the narrator feels personally drawn in, almost haunted by history itself.
Okay, so stanza 1 gives us this overt chaos, this connection to the past, but then stanza 2, it throws this really weird paradox at us. No hunger felt, yet fires rise, the market stalls hold empty eyes. That feels deeply unsettling. How can there be no hunger when there's devastation and these empty eyes in the market? And then the bats and shadows crowd the air, dark wings of sorrow everywhere.
This is where it gets really interesting, I think. It moves beyond just, physical survival. The hunger it's talking about maybe isn't for food, maybe it's for hope, or justice, or truth. The poem shows brilliantly, I think, how a society can seem okay. On the surface, maybe people aren't starving physically, but it's hollowed out inside. The fires aren't about needing bread. They're burning from something else. Ideology, rage, a kind of spiritual void. And those empty eyes, the dark wings of sorrow, they're not just decoration. They really drive home this pervasive dread, this suffocation that's worse than physical need. It's like a moral famine. People exist, but they aren't truly living.
That's a really powerful way to put it, a moral famine, invisible hunger. Okay, so shifting from that dread, stanza 3 feels like it just erupts. The wolves cry out, bring blood, bring bread, the jackals starve, the ground runs red. What are these animalistic demands about? And then that question, without a shield they march to fight. Who fires the first shot in the night?
Yeah, this stanza throws us right into the brutal core of the conflict. The wolves and jackals, they're such visceral symbols, aren't they? They could represent factions just reduced to primal needs, survival, resources, willing to kill for the basics. It's this stark picture of dehumanization where the other side isn't human anymore, just predators or scavengers. And that question, who fires the first shot, it cuts right to the heart of it. The ambiguity, how impossible it is to pin blame once the violence starts, how quickly retaliation takes over, blurring who's the aggressor and who's the victim. It really highlights the moral mess of it all.
So it's like this descent where finding the start of the violence becomes impossible, just feeding the cycle. But then stanza 4 seems to shift gears from that raw chaos to something more planned. The lizards dart through nets unseen, the chessboard waits, its traps between. What does this imagery tell us about how the struggle is changing? And who are these hollow masks obeying the call?
Right, exactly. Yeah. There's a definite shift here. It brings in this more strategic, maybe even intellectual element. Less raw fury, more cunning. The lizards darting through nets unseen, that strongly suggests, covert stuff. Hidden agendas, people pulling strings behind the scenes. And the chessboard, well, that's a classic metaphor for calculated conflict, isn't it? Every move planned, trying to outwit the opponent. Those hollow masks are particularly chilling. They feel like proxies, maybe. Individuals or groups acting out someone else's revenge, following an agenda that isn't really theirs. Driven by powers you don't see, it speaks to how power can hide, right? Behind these layers of strategy and anonymity.
Like the raw energy of the revolution gets co-opted by the strategists, which leads us right into stanza 5, painting this picture of inequality creeping back in. The prison gates swing wide once more, the chains are hidden, yet they score. And then the lords of feast drink deep with cheer, while beggars starve and pawns draw near. What kind of oppression is this hinting at, and who's actually winning after all this upheaval?
Well, this stanza feels like a really bitter commentary on what happens after the dust settles, or seems to settle. It suggests that even after massive change, the old inequalities can just stick around. Or maybe reappear in a new disguise. Those hidden chains are potent. They imply control that's maybe subtler than before, but just as real, just as oppressive. It highlights this sort of illusion of freedom. The system changes, but the exploitation, it might just adapt. And the lords of feast, celebrating while beggars starve, and the pawns, the ordinary people, are still suffering, still expendable. It vividly shows a new elite rising from the chaos. Power just reshuffles, but injustice doesn't necessarily go away.
That's a crucial point, oppression just adapting. Okay, now stanza 6. This one really packs a historical punch. On fields of war, the heads were claimed, the guillotine with blood was stained, and then the camps of froth, the secret spies, the Pravda voice, the broken lies. These images are so specific, so loaded. What historical moments is the poem pulling in here? And what does layering them like this tell us about counter-revolution itself?
Yeah, this is where the poem really uses historical illusion powerfully, showing how these patterns repeat. The guillotine with blood was stained. That instantly brings the French Revolution's reign of terror to mind, right? That period of intense purges, state violence, condensed into one brutal image. Then it pivots. Camps of frost, secret spies, the Pravda voice, broken lies. These lines are incredibly evocative of the Russian Revolution and the Soviet era that followed. Camps of frost, you think gulags, those forced labor camps. Secret spies, the pervasive surveillance, the secret police of totalitarian regimes. And Pravda voice, referencing the official Soviet newspaper, directly points to state propaganda, controlling the narrative, suppressing truth. By weaving these different historical moments together, the poem seems to be saying that the tools of repression, the mechanisms of state control, they look remarkably similar across different times, different revolutions, even when the names change. It really underscores that cyclical nature of power and its abuses.
It's chilling how those mechanisms just reappear. So finally we get to the end, stanza 7. The old revolt returns again, a song of loss, a song of pain, and then... But hearts still burn, though broken, true. We dreamed for us, but paid for you. There's such a weight of loss here, sacrifice. What's the final message? Is it disillusionment?
Oh, deeply poignant, that ending. And it feels very personal, almost accusatory. The old revolt returns again. It suggests nothing fundamental was really solved. It's a cycle of conflict, of suffering, a bitter pill to swallow, that all the struggle didn't bring lasting change, that maybe the ideals got lost or twisted. And that line, we dreamed for us, but paid for you. Wow. It's this incredibly powerful statement of sacrifice, isn't it? And disillusionment. It implies the dream was for us, the ones who fought, who believed, but the price was paid in their suffering. And maybe the benefits, the outcome, went to perhaps a new generation or a new elite who didn't fully grasp the cost, or maybe betrayed the original dream. It's a heavy reflection on who bears the burden and that lingering sense that the promise wasn't kept.
Yeah. So wrapping up this deep dive, it's obvious the Ballad of Counter-Revolution isn't just verses on a page. It's this stark, almost warning commentary. Through all that vivid imagery, the historical echoes, it paints this picture of constant struggle, the paradoxes within upheaval, and those costs of change that often get hidden. It's a powerful reminder, really, that power, protests, suffering, they often seem to move in cycles, that the fight for real justice, for freedom, it's rarely simple, often a very winding, difficult path. And as we think about this poem, this stark portrayal of violence, injustice, broken dreams, it really forces you to ask, doesn't it? What would it actually take to break those cycles? Is there a kind of revolution or maybe counter-revolution that could actually deliver on its promises without demanding such a terrible price?
That's the profound question, isn't it? Because history seems to show us again and again how incredibly difficult it is to achieve that kind of lasting fair change without new problems arising or the original vision getting lost along the way. It definitely pushes us to look critically at the stories we tell ourselves about progress.
Indeed it does. We hope you'll reflect on the poem's imagery, its message. Think about how it connects to history, maybe even things happening now. What does it really take to build something better? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.